Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of my question and answer series. In this weekly series, I choose a bunch of questions from my subscribers and attempt to answer them on camera. It's unscripted, unrehearsed, unedited, and completely unprofessional. If you have any questions, then just drop them in the comments below, and if you want a sneak peek of what I'll be answering this week, then just check out the description. But for now, let's get right into it. Hey, I did the first Q&A video a couple of weeks ago, and since then I've had loads of questions, so I'm going to attempt to rattle through them pretty quickly. The first is from Michael Towers, who is a great supporter of this channel. I really appreciate all your help, mate, you're amazing. So his question was just on the dimensions of my shed, and I answered them, but I just thought I'll bring it up in here because a few people ask me. So width-wise, it's 4.5 meters, which is pretty perfect for the width of a UK pool table. I've got plenty of room that side between the table and the doors, and just about enough room this side. The shelf there gets a little bit in the way. I would say lengthwise, you need about 5.5 or 6 meters lengthwise to be able to play comfortably, and that's what I had in my last place. Unfortunately, I've got this wall in my garden that is 5 meters long. So this long wall here is 5 meters, which isn't enough to be able to play comfortably. So I've actually created this kind of, I don't know if you can tell in here, a kind of hexagon type shape. So rather than just a rectangular shed, it's a hexagon. So the other 4 smaller walls are about 3 meters in length. And that gives a total, I think it's about 10 or 11 meters point to point, but I've got more than enough room. As you can see, I've got a bar that side. I hardly ever show you this side, but I've got a couch here and a bare wall at the back that I always planned on using to put my projector against. I've never actually done it yet, but I did purposely want that wall straight because it faces onto my decking, and I can put the projector outside so I can watch big football games and boxing matches and stuff like that, so it's pretty cool. The second question was from Bryson Bam, who just asked what a double or kick shot is, and it's basically just when you hit a ball off the cushion to try and pot it, just like this. Now that can be into the middle pocket, or it can be, I'll miss this one because corner doubles are hard, or it can be into a corner a mile away. But anyway, that's it. That's what a double or kick shot is. Scott Rogers asked me this really interesting question: if I have a system for playing a slow drag shot with side, a system for aiming. The short answer is I don't, because there's so many variables when you play with side. So your cue, the balls, the table will all determine how much the ball throws off. And then with a drag shot, it kind of depends on how far away you're playing it, how hard you're hitting it. So you would probably, say I'm trying to pot this ball in here with a little bit of drag to stay on this one. You would probably play it, differently to how you would if you were back here. And the reason that you would play a drag shot is, say you've got a kind of thin cut. If you just try and play this really slow, dead weight, then you trust the table a lot that it's not going to run off, which it did slightly there to try and stay in the ball. If you play it simply with drag and try and pot that ball, then what's happening is, I did play that with drag, but you can see the cue ball's coming down this natural path here, so it's getting further and further away from the object ball, making that a harder pot. So sometimes you actually play it with a bit of side spin, and what that does is, instead of the cue ball coming down this path and getting further away, you want to try and get it down this path, which means even though it's still travelling far, it's not travelling too far away from that ball. So when you play with drag and a bit of side, a couple of things are happening. So I would play this with left hand drag. It'll push the ball off to the right initially, but because I'm playing it with drag, so a little bit off bottom, not putting a lot of speed in it, it's then going to swing to the left, which is a really hard shot to judge. You're basically trying to judge a swerve shot here. which I managed, and you can see the cue ball is in a better position for that one than it was when I simply just played a drag shot. Boo Boy Jones asked me for a cue recommendation, and it's something that I've been asked for a lot recently. And the simple answer to it is your cue is very specific to you. It's like, Harry Potter choosing his wand. Everyone has, a different cue and likes different features of a cue. My biggest recommendation with a cue would be to, if you can, try some stuff out before you buy it. Whether that's using friends' cues or if there's a shop nearby you that's got lots of different cues. Because the two biggest features that are unique to you are the thickness of the cue and the weight. My cue is 7.5 millimeters thick, which is a really thin cue, and it's 20 ounces in weight, which is pretty heavy for a UK cue. I actually got a piece of lead put in there to bring the weight up, but I got that made to my specifications, what I like. Apart from that, most of it is all kind of decorative. You can choose it, the shaft tends to be either ash or maple. I choose maple just because it doesn't have a grain in it. I don't like looking down a grain, but some people do, so that's personal preference to you. And then a lot of the costs, people always ask, should I go for a more expensive cue? A lot of the cost actually comes in the manufacture, and in this part of the cue, if you get something that's machine made so that you can produce 100 cues in an hour or whatever, it's going to cost you a lot less than a cue maker who will spend time choosing specific woods and gluing everything together, letting the wood settle. That process takes a lot of time, so therefore adds on to the cost. And the second thing is the type of wood that's used. So in your butt, you tend to get a ebony wood is used. I think that's quite heavy, so it gives a weight to the cue because ash and maple are quite light. But obviously, the more exotic woods that you get, and splicing as well, so you can see this is like decorative splicing, this will add cost onto your cue. So if you go for something quite exotic there, then it's going to add more onto it, but it's not going to make you play any better. The biggest thing is the weight and thickness, so start from there and then just choose something that you like within your budget. Tates11 asked me my thoughts on transfer spin. And it's a bit of an interesting one because I always believed that transfer spin was a thing until I watched Michael Holt's snooker channel recently, where he showed a few shots in real slow motion. He showed that there was no spin being transferred from the cue ball onto the object ball. Now I always believed it to be the case that it did happen, because with shots like this, if I line up this double here, let's give myself a bit more angle. If I hit that straight, you can see that I miss that on that side. If I try and change the angle of the object ball by hitting slightly on the right hand side of it to try and manipulate it into the pocket, I actually can't make it. I'll end up getting a double kiss. Now, to make that pot, I would always say that you want to put a bit of transfer spin on this. So you want left hand spin on the object ball to kind of check it off the cushion and get it into there, which means that you put right hand spin on the cue ball. And if we do that, you can see that we now make that pot and the cue ball is spinning. So what I believe to be happening there was, because I was putting right hand spin on the cue ball, it's travelling like that towards the object ball. When it comes into the object ball, it's putting left hand spin on it and making it check off the cushion. That's not actually the case. What it's doing is it's travelling that way and it makes contact with the object ball, but because it's spinning that way towards you, it's actually spinning the ball like that. So it's, rather than hitting it here, it's now hitting it here, but because you've contacted it full ball instead of there, you don't get the double kiss, and that's why that shot now works. So no, I don't believe in transfer spin anymore. Ed Tamboni asks if I use different aiming methods for cut shots. So would I aim this shot different to aiming something like this? Or, as he puts it, do I just shoot for the angle? Simple answer is yes, I shoot for the angle. I learned to play over 30 years ago. Aiming methods weren't even a thing then. So I just learned what I would call the natural way. You know, if you have a shot like this, and you miss it by hitting it too thick, then the next time you get that shot, your brain says, right, I need to hit it thinner. If you then hit it thinner and you miss, your brain then tells you, right, the actual contact point is someplace in the middle of those 2 points. And so you adjust and pot it. Not like what I did there. I realise that, you know, when you're starting out, it's difficult to know all the angles, but that's where just practice comes into it. There's no shortcut with it. It's that old saying, you know, if you do something for 10,000 hours and you become an expert at it, I don't know how long it'll take you to practice playing pool or snooker. A little while to get used to those angles. And once you get to a point, you actually don't think about it. So those shots there, I just get down and I know where to hit them. So it doesn't matter where the white ball is. If it's here, I know where to hit it. If it's here, I know where to hit it. And that's what you want to do. You want to get to that point where it becomes natural. So yeah, just shoot for the angle, buddy. Steve Jones asked me where he should aim on the cut break. So I'll set this up. I actually play it from that side, but I'll demonstrate it from here. Imagine I've set the balls up. So this is the top one. We've got the next ones down. What I do, it might not work on this side. So I actually place the cue ball in a bit from where most people play the cut break. Most people will put the cue ball quite far out to the side and the cue over the cushion. I think that means that you can't get as much speed on the cue ball. So I tend to place it in a bit and I cue over the pocket. So I don't know if you've ever noticed on my videos, that pocket up there looks a bit worn. It's not, I've actually got a piece of black tape over it, and it's just to stop the rubber rubbing against my cue and creating a line. So I actually play across the pocket, which allows me to get a lot more backswing and speed on the cue ball. And what I'm trying to do is, we're hitting the second ball down, so let's take all of them away. Where I aim to try and get a consistent break, so I'm playing from the same point all the time. I'm aiming to pot that ball in there. I play it from the opposite side, so I'm aiming to pot that ball in there. You won't pot it because there's stuff in the way, but it gives me a consistent point to aim at. And I want to try and hit just below centre on the cue ball. So when the cue ball comes into contact with the cushion, it hits it round about this midpoint. And if you do that, it swings back into the balls and can break them up again, but it also keeps the cue ball under control and away from pockets. If you don't get enough backspin, then it hits down here, comes off here, and it can go flying up the table. If you get too much backspin, it hits here and ends up back down that way as well. So that's where I aim. And it works for me, but it might not work for everyone. One of my other long-time supporters, Anthony McNamee, asked me to demonstrate plants. So I've set up just 3 simple ones here. So this one, the yellows, there's a little bit of a gap between them and they're straight on in the pocket. And this is a simple one. You can hit this ball just about anywhere and you will pot it. What's a bit more common is the second plant here. So there's a bit of a gap between the balls and they're lined up about that part on the knuckle. So you need to hit a different part of this object ball to pot that one. And what you do is you imagine that ball is a cue ball and look at where you want to hit the second ball. So sometimes you'll see players do this and they're just trying to line it up. Now what you can do, I don't think this is legal, but you can imagine, you know, if there's a spot on the cushion or something on the wall, you can imagine where you're hitting that ball. So I'm actually aiming that ball about there. Let me just check that. Yep. So now I've got a visual on this ball. You can't use your chalk, but if there's something on the wall or a spot on the cushion or something, you can aim to hit that ball towards the chalk. And you should pot it. Now the third plant, again these aren't lined up. They're hitting about that point on the cushion, but these balls are touching, so you actually play it a bit differently. So in that previous example, you would work out where you need to hit this ball to pot it in there. Now you're actually doing the opposite. Because they're touching, they squeeze each other, so you actually want to hit it on the other side. So instead of hitting there to try and pot the ball, you want to hit it from this side and try and pot it. Just like that. Plander Lind asked me a great question, and thanks a lot recently, buddy. You've become a great supporter of the channel. How do you hit a ball smoothly? And it's all on that, for me, it's all on that last stroke as you deliver the cue. The key to it, I think, is as you address the ball, you want to create almost a 90-degree angle between this part of your arm and this part of your arm. So when your cue is at the cue ball, you want that part about 90 degrees. If you hold your cue too far up there, you can see that you're widening the angle, and if you bring it here, you're narrowing the angle. So you want to find a point in your cue that's about 90 degrees, because what that does is it allows you to bring your cue back quite easily. You know, you've got a lot of room for that, and you're maybe extending that angle by about another 45 degrees. And then when you deliver it through, and you're pushing your cue through, you're going through about 45 degrees that way. So you've got almost a perfect midpoint here where you contact the cue. And what that does is, if you think of the acceleration from your backswing all the way through to when it stops, think of it as, you know, if you plotted it on a graph, it would curve like that. So your acceleration as you come down here goes up. At the point you contact the cue ball, that's where you want your maximum acceleration. And sometimes you'll hear people talking about timing of the shot. That's what it means. It's meaning that you're hitting that cue ball at the sweet spot of acceleration. And then as you follow through with the cue, that acceleration is coming down. But the key to it, 90 degrees there, lets you go 45 back to the starting point, and then 45 forward. So if you get used to playing it that way, that'll make you hit it a lot smoother. Keenan Davis asked if I can do a video on how to make consistent breaks. So for me, the cut break is a consistent break, and I will do a specific video on what I do for the cut break. But I would say start with that, go for a cut break, aim for that second ball down to pot it in the corner, bring the cue ball in slightly, you're always aiming at the same point, and just slightly below centre, you're trying to get the cue ball to contact the cushion about there. Give it a try, buddy, and let me know how you get on. Georgia asked me how to play when you're not on, you know, when you're not perfect, you know, think about the mental and emotional side of things. I will do a video on this because I find it fascinating, and I could probably talk for days and days about this. And it's not going to be a one size fits all. There's probably going to be stuff that will work for some people and not others. And that's why sports psychologists exist and why they're very well paid. There's a couple of things that you can do in terms of tactic wise. You know, do you actually go into your shell and play more conservatively and try and make things difficult for your opponent? Or do you say, no, I'm going to play the positive shot, which is what I would normally do when I'm playing well? Either can work. It's up to you to decide that. In terms of the mental thing, the emotional stuff, I will definitely do a video on it because there's so much. If there's one tip that I could give you, it would be to become an actor. So if you feel crap inside, you know, it will show in your game. Everyone knows it. Everyone's been there when they've been a wee bit shaky. Everything looks rubbish. And you know what? It gives your opponent a great sense of confidence if they can see their opponent struggling. So become an actor. Just kid on that you're in a good mindset, that you're playing well. Strut round the table, walk positively, play the positive shots. And what it can do is it can trick your body into thinking that you are actually playing that way, which can help you play better. But also, reverse psychology here, if you're strutting about the table, not like that obviously, but looking confident around the table, moving quickly, that can unsettle your opponent. Seeing somebody confident can unsettle your opponent. So that would be the one tip that I would give you in this video, but I promise I will go into that a lot more detail in another one. I had a few users ask me what rules I played because I filmed a break and run with a bit of commentary, and I potted the ball off the break, and the first shot that I played, I had something like this, and I planted the yellow ball onto the red ball to pot it, and then I cleared the red balls. That rule is not allowed in a lot of rule sets, but it is in black ball rules, and that's what I play. It's what I've always played for about the last 15 years or so. It's the most widely played rule set, you know, in my area and all the competitions that we play in. Ismail asked me if I've got any tips on playing with side, and again, this is quite similar to your cue. You know, if I play this shot with right hand side, I know where to aim to pot it. But if I went up to the rack and got a different cue out and tried that same shot, I might miss it. No one can tell you exactly where to play with side. It's down to a lot of conditions. The main one being you know your cue, whether you know thickness, the weight, the type of tip on it, the type of ferrule, how hard you're hitting the ball, the table and the balls themselves. Even the conditions can make a difference to how much a ball throws off. So all I would say is my tip would be to practice playing with side. You know, just set up a shot like this and try and pot it with side. You know, if you hit it too thin, like this, then you know that the next time you need to hit it a little bit thicker. So you hit it a little bit thicker and see if you can pot it. And just keep playing with it. It is fun to play with side. I know it's difficult, but it looks pretty cool when you do it. So don't shy away with it from it. And I've heard a few people say this, you know, you line up to pot a ball, say you're putting a straight ball there, and then you just aim like that. Don't do that, you're cutting across the ball. Actually get down as if you're playing with side so that everything's in a line. And the final tip is from John Crawford, who asks, what's the best practice before a match? Again, this will be quite individual to you, but what I like to do is just set the balls up in a triangle, smash them up and just try and pot them. I might take reds, I might take yellows, or I might just pot anything that's in sight. I like to just get my arm moving and just loosen myself up and play lots of different shots, you know, stuns, screws, follow through, side spin. I'll hit it hard, hit it soft. I think it's important to get a proper feel of the table. So I like to do that rather than, you know, some people will maybe do a lineup or they'll do a certain routine. What I find with them is if you don't complete them, you sometimes feel a little bit down, you know, you're not as confident, whereas if you just smash the balls up and pot whatever's in sight, I think you're always going onto the table feeling pretty good, unless you're missing dead easy stuff. But that's what works for me, so give it a try and let me know what you think. Thanks.